Okay.
I feel like Run DMC for those of you.
Just got to hold it like this. It also makes you feel cool when you just lean against a beer barrel. Feels cool to be surrounded by steel. So, well, thanks for the very warm welcome. Don and I are so honored to be here again and so happy to be in the brew house of Wisconsin Brewing. What an amazing place to be. I'm going to introduce Don. Liz already did, but Don is the kind of guy that you call when you need an answer to something about digital. So as all of us in the industry, we work in our jobs and we have this person that we call and we say, here's a super weird, complex problem that I'm having. What do you think? Don is that person for me. So when I was asked to speak, I thought immediately that I absolutely needed to make sure that Don was here with me to talk about some of the things he goes through, which is around content.
Well, and in Andrew's case, thank you very much for the compliment. Andrew, for those of you who don't know, is one of the best Facebook marketing experts in the world. And I feel really lucky to be able to present with him and to work together on projects where we were able to bring together kind of the organic search expertise along with paid ads expertise and on Facebook. And it's kind of like the peanut butter and jelly thing. Can you hear me better now? All right. So the other thing that I want to mention is that I was a dog trainer for about 10 years, so I'm a huge dog person as well. And so I knew there was a reason I felt really comfortable coming into this environment. But let's get started. So one of the things that I want to talk about today is the idea and the concept of creating content and thinking about content marketing. Now, I'm lucky enough to do some work with the Content Marketing Institute, producing classes and producing white papers for them, working with some other folks as well in the industry. And one of the things that we've heard over the last probably 3-4 years is just create a lot of content. Create epic content, and what's going to happen with that content? It's going to do what? Rise to the top. It's going to go viral. Everybody's going to find it. And that's getting harder and harder to do today. And so I'm going to give you guys a few tips and tricks that might sound or might seem simple, but are really important to really embrace. If you embrace these, I will guarantee that you are going to see increased success with the work that you're doing. The first one is a very simple quote that comes from one of my friends, Bob Berg. And this quote literally changed my business when I got into business. Now, does anybody here know who Bob Berg is? Author of The Go-Giver? You should know who he is if you have not read that book before. It's a fantastic book. I got to get this in the right spot. But anyway, he told me when I was looking at starting my business, I said, you know, Bob, what's the best key to success? How do I know that the work I'm going to do is going to matter? And he said this, Don, people do business and refer business to people who meet 3 criteria. You got to be knowable, you got to be likable, and you got to be trustworthy. And those 3 attributes are not things you can do in a one-stop, quick connect relationship. What this implies, and Wayne had talked about it earlier, is that digital is about people. Because believe it or not, I don't know if you've realized this, on the end of almost every social media account and every computer, every digital device is what? A human, right? And you'll often hear that business is B2B, business to business, or B2C, business to consumer. But the reality is all business is P2P, people to people. So it's incredibly important to keep that in mind. When you start thinking about content, you need to start thinking about how you're going to connect with the right folks in the right way. And that's going to be harder than ever to do. Has anybody here read The Content Code by Mark Schaefer? Okay. Everybody else should read it. It's a great book. I was lucky enough to help on that book. And that's not the reason to read it. The reason to read it is that we've seen this huge change in the way we market today. And let's look at a couple of stats. So it is estimated by the year 2020, there is going to be a 500% increase in content online. If you take the internet as we have it today and you multiply it by 5, that's what we're going to have. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that 75% of all of that content that's being created is going to be created by people who are the consumers. Now, think about that. If you take a step back, who are we competing against in someone's Facebook feed? This has never happened before in human history. You have somebody's mom posting something, their spouse posting something, in some cases people's dogs. I know dogs that have Facebook pages. And then you see an ad from a business. And what that means is that we have to start thinking about how we can matter to people. Another quick stat, every 2 days, if you took the amount of content from the very first cave paintings to the year 2003, and you put that all together and compile it in one big pile, that's the amount of content that most people will say, there's a little bit of debate on this stat, but most people will say is produced every 2 days. So I always ask people when I'm working with them, is there anybody in the room, and please raise your hand if this holds true for you, is there anybody in here who's information underwhelmed? Anyone? Anybody saying, God, if I only had more ads in my... Is there anybody who feels like they have way too much spare time? Nobody? Darn, I wanted to trade lives with somebody for a day. The reality is we're all super busy, and you have to think about not content from a marketer standpoint, you have to think about it from a consumer standpoint. And the more you get to know your consumer, the better off you're going to be. So we look at some other stats. So look at this, and Andrew will speak to some of this, the corporate content reach of Facebook. How many people have seen any Facebook page they manage, the content on Facebook, make a downward trend, and a significant downward trend? You know, everybody, right? And if you stop and you think about that, part of the reason is the average of any individual at any one time, Facebook has the ability to show 1,500 pieces of content at any second on each of our news feeds. So stop and think about that. I mean, that is tremendous. That's what we're competing against. And how do we get in Facebook's news feed for the people who've liked us or the people we want to connect with? Andrew will talk some about that. But it's a little disconcerting because what ends up happening is we think, hey, we create content, we create great content, it's going to rise to the top, everybody will love our business, everybody will love our organization. But when we look at this number, when we look at these numbers and we look at these stats, what do we realize? It's really, really hard to stand out. It's really hard. And a lot of people will argue this is actually one of the hardest times to stand out in marketing. So for most people, when I work with clients and I talk to them about this, the reaction they have is this. I've spent so much money, I've spent so much time, I've spent so much energy. What do you mean my content isn't resonating? A company that I got to connect with literally spent $3 million on their content marketing strategy last year in 2014 and got almost zero return for it. I mean, you stop and you think about it, it's because we're competing for attention. So one of the big questions then is there hope? And Andrew, again, will hit on some of that, but I want to let you guys know that, yes, there is indeed some hope. So when we stop and take a step back and start thinking about how do we connect with the right people and how do we identify them, how do we matter to them? Because you have to remember, think about the things that you like, think about the things that you share, think about the things you retweet, think about the things that you give hearts to, whatever it is. And you have to think about there's a deep emotional connection that goes to what we connect with. And so part of me is a neuroscience geek. I love studying neuroscience. Is anybody in here a Simon Sinek fan? Start with why? Oh, if you're not, gotta check out Simon Sinek. Love his stuff. And what he shows and what he talks about in his TED Talks, he has one of the most popular TED Talks of all time, is about the need to find things that we connect with, whether they're individuals or businesses, is not just a neat thing. It is biologically wired into us. It is biologically wired to find things that we resonate with, that we connect with. And so when you stop and you think about this, you really have to think about from a marketing perspective of really how well do you know your ideal client. A lot of people will give lip service to this. But I'll often say to my clients, how many mouths do you have? I've got one mouth. How many ears do you have? You have 2 ears. Are you listening twice as much as you're talking at people? And the answer is no. Because everybody wants to be heard except when they're marketing. They want everybody to hear them. They'll ask somebody a question. It's kind of like the used car sales guy. So tell me what it is you're looking for. You tell that person what it is that you're looking for, and what do? They show you a car that's completely the opposite of what you want. It's the one that they need to move, right? They're not worried about you. They're worried about making a sale. And this generation of people, the Gen Yers, by the way, are the least trusting group of humans that have ever existed, because they've had so much smoke and mirrors pulled in front of them from advertisers that they distrust. So what I want you guys to think about, and this is really simple. One of my good friends, you may know him, he said, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Does anybody know who said that? Who was that? Einstein, good guess. Da Vinci, exactly. Leonardo da Vinci. Now, I don't know about you, but Leonardo was a pretty smart cat, right? He was a pretty smart guy. And so, you know, one of the things that I've learned in both my work at the university and in my own business is to try to pay attention to really smart people and what they do. And that was one of the big quotes that has also influenced my life. But this is a quote that I virtually start out every client with whenever I'm working on a project. It's also what I start every university course I teach when I'm teaching about marketing. So let's read this quote. And I apologize, there's a misspelling in it. I turned in my slide deck after I realized there was a quote. But let's forget that. It's a human error. If you wish to persuade me, you must think my thoughts, feel my feelings, and speak my words. Now take a step back and think about that. Is there anybody in the room when you're having a conversation with somebody else that you don't want to be heard and that you don't want to be validated? Anybody? Of course not. There is, again, a biological need to feel connection. And when you take a step back and you really analyze what's being said here, if you want to connect with me as an individual, you better think about how I think about how I feel, and kind of use the words that help me relate to you. Does anybody know who said this quote? I know I just did, but?
Trump.
Donald Trump. Close. Very close when you see the answer. Does anybody know who said this quote? Minus points. Am I able to grade today? Yeah? Okay. Minus points for everybody. The person who said that quote was Cicero. So take a step back. Everybody's saying, what's this new thing in business? What do I have to know? This is ancient knowledge. This is not new. Does anybody know the Mary Kay brand? Mary Kay Cosmetics? Okay, everybody has heard of Mary Kay. If you stop and think about what she did, starting a women-run business for women at a time women weren't supposed to be working outside of the home, she had a huge challenge in front of her. And somebody asked her once, well, what happened when your business started to change, when you knew your business was going to stick? And does anybody know the answer to that question, what she said? Anybody else a Mary Kay fan? I don't just use the product, I'm a fan. What she said is, I started envisioning every person that I worked with, every person that I met had a sign around their neck, and that sign said, make me feel important. Make me feel important. And digital marketing, yes, it allows us to connect with people on a large scale, but I challenge you to think, with your ideal clients, are you creating content that really speaks to them, that shows and demonstrates that you are part of their arena? I love what Wisconsin Brewing Company is doing here. I absolutely love it. Because when you heard Carl talk, can you get a sense of who the ideal person is that would come in here? I mean, I'm from Milwaukee originally, beer capital of the world, Harley-Davidson capital, and you know, people who fit the profile would love a place like this because they feel like they're at home. And so when you're thinking about your content strategy, you have to start thinking about the stuff that people share and the people connect with. And this is a whole new arena. Mark Schaefer talks about it in his book, The Content Code, about content amplification and content ignition. So some of the basic strategies, really the 101 strategy, is to really sit down and spend time analyzing the content that your ideal customers are sharing. Whether or not it's yours, it doesn't matter. It demonstrates who they are and what they're about. And then you can start looking at using imagery, using text, using content that connects with them. Now, the second portion of that is you got to move into the Facebook ads. So combining, and the strategy that we always push is combining the organic with the paid. So I'm going to turn it over to Andrew and let you riff.
Okay, thanks. Well, everybody go out to your car, tear out your seatbelt, bring the seatbelt back in here, buckle it in, because we're talking tactics. So Don, I love Don, the beginning of the presentation, because Don talks about the way to frame this, and the way to frame up thinking about content and what we will ignite. So as Don mentioned, I do Facebook marketing, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Facebook, there's, give or take about 1 billion people on it, so you may have heard of it. Very popular. For those of you that saw the presentation that I gave last year, I'm going to go through a little bit of an update and talk about this just briefly. So on Facebook, you may or may not know, but you have the ability, changing hands, hold on a second. You have the ability to target 5 main different groups on Facebook, okay? You have the ability to target what are called demographics. And these are things like where people live, what zip code do they live in, within how many miles, what ages they are, what are their are they in a relationship, are they married or are they not married. Demographics, though, since the last time I spoke to those of you that were here last year, has changed. Facebook decided to add about 20 more categories under here, and they are things like, are you a renter? Are you a homeowner? What is your net worth? Things like, for example, my personal favorite, where do they work? What type of industry do they work in? So demographics, even if you look at that on its own, that's an extremely powerful thing that you can do in targeting. And I want to, before I begin, because I'm already starting to see people's faces do this one, where it's like, really, that's mildly creepy. So I'm happy to have a conversation around privacy with anybody that wants to afterwards. But the thing I'll say about privacy is on Facebook, I don't know who any of these people are by name. I only know them by the cluster that I'm targeting. So I don't know that I'm going to target Wayne Glowak with a Facebook ad. I know that if I target guys who like beer in Madison, Wayne might be one of those people. Okay, so I'll just stop there, just kind of keep going. So demographics is a really important one. The next one is interests. And in interest targeting, this used to be Facebook pages that you liked. So if I liked GoPro's Facebook page, you could target the fans of that Facebook page, right? Which is great. Super helpful to us. However, if you think about all of the things that you use to use that Facebook login with, those are now connected. So if you think about the fact that I, being someone that listens to bluegrass an obscene amount on Spotify, okay, I am going to be in the bluegrass category on Spotify. This makes sense. The next thing you can think about is Facebook owns a little property named Instagram, just rounded the corner on 400 million users. And Instagram, what is Instagram made of if you're on Instagram, or as those of us that are on the inside call it IG? Hashtags. So if you think about hashtags that are being used, if I use hashtag Wisconsin or hashtag Madison, Wisconsin, it's probably going to be likely that if you target me in an ad or target ads to people likely that are within Madison, Wisconsin, I might be included in that. So just to give you an update on some of these things that have happened recently. Behavioral targets are a collection of data that's from consumer data. Again, all anonymized, but they lease data from the 3 largest data warehouses in the United States, or probably in the world. And they allow us to target clusters of people that are depending upon their consumer behavior. One of these that I use frequently, working with Wisconsin Brewing, is those people that buy craft beer. So this makes much sense. And there's many crazy things under here as well. Like people that buy organic household cleaning products. If that's something you sell, that may be pretty attractive to you. So behaviors is another part of it. And custom audiences is another layer of this. Custom audiences allows you to put in your email list into Facebook. Facebook puts it through a secure process where it matches the email addresses that are on that list along with the people that are on Facebook that are on that list, and you can target that cluster of people. So the reason I tell you all this again is because all of these things work in combination together. So you can target people that are on your email list that also have an interest in X. You can target people that live within Madison that have an interest in craft beer that also buy craft beer. So you get where I'm headed with this, kind of to begin to frame up our discussion today. One of the things I want to mention about igniting your content is if you're going to create content, which maybe many of you are doing, which is fantastic, if you do nothing else, and you're like, Andrew, I don't want to do Facebook ads, and your jeans are too tight, I don't want to leave it alone. If that's what you're thinking, which is totally okay, just don't say it to my face, you should definitely consider or reconsider doing what's called retargeting, or what Facebook calls website custom audience retargeting. And this is a pixel from Facebook that allows you to put it on Facebook, or put it on your homepage or on your website, and it allows you to retarget people with an ad that have been to your website. So if you create, let's say, a blog post, people click to your website to read that blog post, you can then send an ad on Facebook to people that have been to that web page and saying, hey, thanks for the read. Maybe you want to sign up for our email list. Or hey, maybe you found our content valuable. Maybe you'd be interested in this product that I would like to sell you. Wisconsin Brewing, little bit of an open the kimono here. The only thing that I've done, by the way, I just love that phrase. I just got to say that's like a super weird phrase. But the only thing that I've really done for generating making sure that our traffic goes up is the people that have come to our site that have checked out our multiple beers on the Wisconsin Brewing site. We've sent them an ad that says, thanks for checking out our beers. Like our page to find out more updates. So these are the types of things that you can start to think about to connect these. And retargeting is something that you can spend $5 a day on because you have people that are coming to your website. The question is, are you recapturing those people? One of my personal faves is lookalike audiences. So this goes back to the custom audiences that you can also target. So you can use that email list or your customer list, and you can say to Facebook, find me people that look exactly like the people on this list based on 2,000 similarity factors. Pretty awesome. I asked Dan Levy, the director of small business for Facebook, about 2 years ago in Chicago, how many factors are in it, and that's the time when he gave me 2,000 similarity factors is how they match them. And I said, is it my beats per minute? Is that included? And he laughed, and he's like, it sort of is, yeah, I'll be honest. And he walked away. So another thing that you can do if you're trying to find people, I mean, let's be honest, who's bought a direct mail list in here? Anybody? Okay, so it's okay. We can admit it. We're amongst friends. But if you're going to buy a direct mail list, why not use Facebook to do it for you and create a lookalike audience? Facebook's finding you people that literally like breathe the same. It's amazing. So this is the type of thing that you can use to really start to fuel your content. Another part of it is the ad unit you use. There's different ad units, and the only reason I put these up here and to talk about the different ad units, which is a very fancy marketing way, a Facebook marketing way of saying these are the types of things you can put in front of somebody, is that many people use the boost post option, right? You put something on Facebook, you'll hit boost post, and it'll go to your fans, and it'll go to your friends of fans. What you may not know is that Facebook has the opportunity to say, I want to do this based on the objective that I want. So you get to say to Facebook, I want to, let's just take an example of the one in the right-hand side, on the right-hand side from the New York Times. That's what's called a link post. Link posts, if you say to Facebook, I want to spend money to send people to my website, the link post is the one that you will use, and Facebook will default give to you, and that's the ad that you'll be building. Because the whole thing, including the image and the box below it, clicks through to your website. So if you think about this, you can spend $10 a day taking over the entire news feed on desktop or mobile for your perfect person, for your perfect customer. So that's really powerful. And the other types of content, or the other types of ads that you have are things like photo albums, which do actually quite well. Photo albums from an organic standpoint do really well. Organic meaning the amount of people that will see something without paid promotion. So, and then the final one is there's a video ad in the middle. How many of you started to see video ads right around the, January, February of this year on Facebook, right? They were everywhere. And the reason for this is Facebook decided and heard from users that video is an extremely powerful way to put the message in front of people, and we actually kind of like video. It makes sense to us. So if you have video, or if you're someone like Don, Don's been doing videos for his brand and for his company, standing and saying, hey, it's Don, I'm recording my phone, I just want to give you one tip for today about what you can do to really motivate your brand. Don's doing these on a regular basis. And you know what? Literally every time I come into Facebook, Don's video is running. So these are small things that you can do from an organic perspective as well. Now, little bit of awesome news as well is that we now have access to Instagram advertising. Instagram ads, if you are someone that has an issue or has a target market of millennials, Instagram is extremely powerful, and we are just getting access to it. Facebook allows you to actually use the exact same targeting options that we just talked about, and it allows you to target ads at those people on Instagram using the exact same thing, the same tools and everything. So if you're interested in Instagram advertising, I would suggest that you write into the Facebook help section, or you can email me, and there's things that I can send you to help get to it. And my presentation and this presentation is going to be online as well on my website. So if you want, you can go back and look, and then you can click on the link, and it'll tell you how to submit access. But Instagram is extremely powerful, and the engagement's very high. And I'll tell you a quick example on it. I have a client that's spending money right now for mobile app installs. They have an app in Chicago, and their average cost per install was about $15. And I launched these ads for mobile app installs on Instagram about 2 weeks ago, and their average install in there is about $5 to $6. So it gives you an idea of the opportunity that's available should you want to take advantage of it. I was asked to talk about 2 different case studies, and I promise then I'll be done. The first one is, the reason I tell these case studies, okay, because here's the thing that bugs me. So you go to a marketing conference, and people get up, and they're like, here's this case study, I'm peace out. And you're like, that's great. I'm glad that you think you're great, but like really, right? So I don't usually share case studies, but I'm sharing 2 important ones today for the pure reason of I want you to understand that all of this is entirely possible by you. Just because I know about Facebook doesn't make, I just read all this stuff obsessively. That's literally all I'm doing differently, okay? So all of this is something that's possible. In 2014, in February, my alma mater asked Gracie and I, my business partners, my wife, to come up with a plan to reach millennials on social media, okay? And if social media could possibly help them to increase the applications to the college. Now, this is a private liberal arts college that the yearly cost now is $50,000, okay? So if you're wondering, I am still in debt, yes. So they asked me to do this, and I was like, yeah, we can try, right? We can try. And what we did was we set up different segments of people through the sales funnel with Facebook advertising. So we sent ads out to people that had an interest, that were in high school, that had interests in the things that our current students had an interest in. They had an interest in things like REI. They had an interest in things like certain bands. And so we sent ads out and said, hey, maybe have you heard of this college? Have you heard of this place? Come check us out. And then they'd get served another ad, and it would say, how are you? Maybe you would like to come take a tour. And we also did this to their parents, to the prospective student parents. We said, hi, great to see you. We also started an Instagram account, and it only has 800 followers. The Facebook page has about 3,800 followers now. Okay, so all of this goes through. The acceptance rate of the college last year goes from 51% to 34% acceptance rate. They're like, wow, okay. They said, but, we had a lot of people, there was a lot of things happening last year. They weren't ready to say social yet. I said, fine, commission a survey, seriously. They were like, we will. And they took me really serious, and they paid every single person that completed the survey a $10 Amazon gift card, including parents and students that deposited to go to the college. People that put down the money that said, we're bringing our kid here. The results of the survey came out. Of the students that deposited, 58% said the Facebook page had a lot or some impact on them to attend the college. The Facebook page. What? And 30% said a Facebook ad, I'm just going to repeat that. 30% said a Facebook ad had a lot or some impact on them to attend the college. That's awesome. And then you look and you talk about parents. And parents saying, I don't know about this Facebook stuff, but 49% of them said the Facebook page had a lot or some impact on them to attend the college or for the kid to attend the college. And 20% said Facebook did as well. And what's crazy about this is if you remove Facebook on the students and parents, just remove 5%, and that's what they said Instagram had an impact on them. 800 followers. It's like rinky-dink. Literally, it had 300 followers for most of the year. This was not rock star stuff. So that's a cool story. The final thing I want to talk about, because I know I'm going up on time, is about Wisconsin Brewing. We're here, full disclosure, I work with Wisconsin Brewing, and we are very proud of the work that we've done to test messaging on Facebook to understand what groups are buying what beer and what messaging they find attractive. As Wayne said, they went to being a house of brews, and they rebranded their beers. They came to me, and Wayne was instrumental in bringing me here and bringing me into this, and I've been working with him continually to refine and work with this messaging, along with the people at Wisconsin Brewing. And we said, they said, here are the images of the beers. Gracie and I rewrote some of the copy for the ads, and we took these ads that you can see for each of these 4 beers, Old Reliable, Yankee Buzzard, Chocolate Lab Porter, and Golden Amber Lager, and we took them out to different segments of consumers. Craft beer drinkers, young craft beer drinkers, older, higher income drinkers, people that drink whiskey, that, spend a little bit more dollars, make a little bit more cash. We sent it to young college-age students, and then we sent it to women foodies. Okay? And we did this across different geographic areas, the same thing. The first thing that happened was our Facebook page was flooded with feedback. And it was not normal. Normally when you launch, so we're talking about advertisements. Let's just be clear about that from the outset, right? When you launch an ad, it's kind of, people just set it aside. They're like, okay. But we had people seeing the ad and in the comments submitting photos of them with their dog drinking the Chocolate Lab Porter. We had people saying things, I'm going to read you some of these because they're hilarious, saying things like, join us on Friday for the release of the inaugural red beer. We'll be there. I know I don't drink, but I'll be there. My greetings. I wish I could be there. Okay. Here's this new beer. Check it out. This was what one of the things that this guy said. I just stocked up at Costco this morning. Had to get one for myself. This guy said, tastes like chicken. I'd love to try some. I'm in Green Bay. Where might it be available? And one of our brewery representatives got on and said, boom, here's where it's available. Guy commented back, thanks, made the purchase. You guys are awesome. Thumbs up, emoji. Okay. And as Carl said, private company, so we're not talking numbers, but things are going well. So what we have from data from this, just to give you an idea of this, and again, I want to be clear, this is all stuff that you're capable of doing. We had the Golden Amber Lager, and what we found out was the website clicks and the engagement by the beer. So which ones had the most engagement? We have Golden Amber Lager, we have the Old Reliable, we have the Chocolate Lab Porter, and the Yankee Buzzard. Well, Wayne talked about Old Reliable and Kirby walking in. Old Reliable is the beer that I drink from Wisconsin Brewing. It's awesome. It's light. It's perfect. It's refreshing. And that's what everybody else thought as well. So this told us across every market which beer had the most clicks and what they interacted with. The next thing we found out was what beer works where, okay? So we found out in Milwaukee, we had, I'm going to look at this, make sure my color coding is correct. But in Milwaukee, we had that the Old Reliable was the best, and the Chocolate Lab Porter was the second best. In Madison, the Old Reliable was the best, and the second was the Golden Amber Lager. So we could start to reflect this across our messaging that we're doing in all those other areas. Now, our salespeople are taking this out to retailers, and they're saying, hey, hey, bar in Milwaukee, you might want to have some Old Reliable on draft because we're blasting your area. And you can see the results for the Fox Valley as well. And the final way that we split it, which was really interesting, was which beer worked for what segment. And there's many results. One of them was craft drinkers liked the Old Reliable the best. Young craft drinkers under 25 liked the Golden Amber Lager. But the one that was really funny was we were coming into summer when we were doing this, and the foodie women, they loved Chocolate Lab Porter. A porter in summer doesn't make a lot of sense, but they loved it because of the picture of the dog, I think. And actually, there was a story about one of the distributors calling one of the sales guys here and saying, what's going on with Chocolate Lab Porter? Because it hadn't been stocked. So these are the types of things that you are totally capable of doing in terms of the message testing that you can do on Facebook, creating the content, and then igniting it. So Don and I have sites on the internet. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's awesome. Check these out. You may or may not get a Facebook ad if you visit mine. But I have a lot of articles on mine, and Don has an ebook that he's giving out as well. So are there other things that you'd like to say? Thank you so much.
That was amazing. Thank you. And by the way, they're both go-givers, so I know that they will both help anyone who has questions and wants to talk to them. We do have time for 2 questions. Anyone have a question for either Don or Andrew before we take a little break? I have one question, and that would have to do with privacy. My sister's a huge user of Instagram, but she's got a private account, so is there any way to reach her on Instagram?
She'll still get ads. Yeah, you just have to request. You can't just immediately follow her if somebody's private on Instagram.
Okay.
So she's still going to get the ads.
She will still see the ads.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
Yeah, I mean, what's going to happen with Instagram?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, do you want to repeat? The question basically was, is Facebook dying for a younger generation, and what are we going to? What's going to happen? I mean, I have a lot of thoughts, but
yeah, the numbers. Tom Webster is a great person to follow online. He works with Edison Research, and the numbers they do a lot of the exit polling for all the national polls. He's great follow. The numbers don't actually reflect that. People say that, but it's not reflected in their behaviors. The second thing is, Facebook is really smart. Did anybody see what they recently purchased? Does anybody know what they recently purchased? The virtual reality tool?
Oculus Rift.
Exactly. So what they do and what they're really smart about is buying properties like Instagram, like Oculus Rift, and knowing where things are going. For example, and paying attention to what people are consuming. So for example, I'm pushing my clients very, very hard to use video. And one of the reasons that I said, okay, I'm really going to start doing this is, what did you see Facebook start pushing in January? Video. Now, when I work with my students and look at some of the research, what are a lot of young audiences consuming? Video. So Facebook, is intelligent about paying attention to what's happening with the market and making shifts to always be relevant in some way, whether they're buying up a property like Instagram or moving forward with something like Oculus Rift, or also trying to create different types of content streams, meaning organically showing things like video that people want to see. So that's kind of a quick, high-level overview. Love to hear your take.
Yeah, I mean, my quick take is right now, if you sit and watch, somebody who's like under 15 on their phone, they look at three or four networks at a time. So they'll look at Facebook. So I don't think they're using it less. The data there's some sort of like negative PR campaign that I'm sure Twitter has launched about Facebook being done for millennials. And that was one of the things that the college actually said. They're using, Snapchat and whatever. I'm like, look, they might be, but they're also on Facebook, and I'll prove it to you. I don't think they're going anywhere. I think they are going to make adjustments, but it's certainly the penetration in terms of the market is still very high, but they are shifting absolutely to Instagram in terms of other things.
And the other thing I'll quick add is there's kind of that social proof. Well, everybody's there, so I have to be there. And there's a lot of us that feel that way, that I'm going to lose a connection because there are so many segments of my inner circle that are on Facebook. Yeah, my grandma's there, but so are a lot of my friends. Well, I can message them on the side. So that's another important point to keep in mind with that.
Thank you all very much.